He walked into the station with blood on his shirt, not his own, and a file clutched so tightly his knuckles were white. "This is it," he told them. "The case is over." 3 hours later, Detective Armand Halle was gone. No struggle. No witnesses. Just his coat hanging on the back of his chair, and a single note that read, "Some cases don't end when you solve them." Rain fell on the precinct windows like static, the kind that never fades, just hums in the background of a place that's seen too much. Inside, the air buzzed with relief and caffeine. Officers leaned over desks, talking louder than usual, laughter echoing in corners where silence used to sit. The silent window murders were finally over. Detective Armand Halle sat apart from it all. His tie was loose, his hands steady, his eyes unreadable, the kind of calm that feels practiced. A paper cup of cold coffee sat untouched near his elbow, unperceived. The file that had consumed 3 years of his life. 5 victims. No pattern, no motive. Until now. "Armand, you're a damn legend," Officer Malik grinned, clapping him on the shoulder. "They're talking about giving you the department medal. You should celebrate." Armand smiled. The kind of smile people wear when they've already left the room in their mind. "I'll pass. I've got a few loose ends to tie up." "Loose ends?" Malik frowned. The guy confessed. "Man, you got him." Armand nodded, but his eyes flicked toward the evidence board, toward the single photograph still pinned there. A narrow apartment window with the curtains half drawn. "Sometimes," he murmured, "the case isn't about the confession." No one heard him over the noise of congratulations. He stood, slid the file under his arm, and walked toward his office. Slow, deliberate steps. Every move felt rehearsed, like he was playing out a scene he'd already imagined too many times. When he closed the door, the noise outside dulled to a heartbeat. Inside, the lights buzzed weakly. On his desk lay a small box sealed with brown tape. His handwriting scrolled across the top. "For Mira." He sat down, ran a hand through his hair, and exhaled. Not relief, but something heavier. The kind of breath you take when you know you're about to disappear. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, he opened the case file one last time. Every photo, every note, every recorded statement. He circled 3 words in red pen. She saw nothing. Then, he took out a blank sheet of paper. The pen trembled once before he started writing. "Some cases don't end when you solve them." When he finished, he folded the note, placed it inside the box for Mira, and stared at the wall clock. Jam 11, lewat 47 menit PM. 3 hours later, Detective Armand Halle would no longer exist. But in that moment, with the storm pressing against the glass and his reflection staring back at him tired, hollow, and strangely at peace, he looked like a man who had finally accepted his ending. He stood up, put on his coat, and turned off the lights. Outside, the corridor was empty, only the hum of old fluorescents and the low growl of thunder. Armand walked past the evidence room, down the back stairs, and out into the rain. No one saw him leave. Only the janitor found the next morning what he'd left behind: a coat on the chair, the file on the desk, and that single note. Some cases don't end when you solve them. By morning, the celebration had turned into confusion. The precinct that had been filled with laughter the night before now buzzed with whispers. The detective who solved the silent window murders was gone, and nobody could explain how. Detective Mira Khan stood in Armand's office doorway, her arms folded, her jaw tight. She had known him for 7 years, long enough to recognize when something wasn't right. His desk was neat, almost unnaturally so. No chaos, no clutter, no empty coffee cups, just his coat on the chair and a box sealed with her name written across it. Malik hovered behind her, awkward, nervous. "He probably just needed air," he said, though it didn't sound like he believed it. After a case like that, maybe he took a break. Mira didn't look up. Armand Halle doesn't take breaks. She opened the box carefully. Inside were a few items: a keyring, a flash drive, and a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was sharp, deliberate. "Mira, If you're reading this, it means I couldn't stop it. Don't trust the files. Start with the window. Ach. Her throat tightened. The window, she whispered. He's talking about the original crime scene. Malik frowned. You mean the first victim's apartment? Mira nodded, her mind already moving ahead of her words. He's leaving a trail. She pocketed the flash drive and note, closed the box, and straightened. Get tech to pull security footage from every exit. Check his phone, GPS, car logs, everything. Malik blinked. You think something happened to him? Her voice was quiet, but steady. I think Armand found something last night, and whatever it was, it found him back. By afternoon, the CCTV footage came in. Mira sat in the dimly lit operations room, the hum of monitors filling the silence. She scrubbed through hours of grainy black and white footage. Nothing. No exit from the front. No movement in the parking lot. Then, at 11:59 p.m., a flicker, a figure long coat, Hatlo walking toward the alley behind the precinct. The frame glitched twice, then froze. Mira leaned closer. Bozan, enhance. The image cleared slightly, enough to see his face, Armand. But there was someone behind him, a shadow following too closely to be random. Then, another glitch. When the image returned, Bot, we're gone. The timestamp. 12:03 a.m. Mira sat back, her pulse steady but fast. He didn't walk out alone. Malik entered, moments later, holding a tablet. Got his phone records. Last call was at 11:42. No name, just an unlisted number. Trace it already did. Malik hesitated. It was routed through the City Hall switchboard. Mira turned sharply. City Hall? He nodded. Internal government line. Someone high up. Her mind raced. Government lines, hidden numbers. Armand leaving her clues. He had always been cautious, methodical. If he disappeared, it wasn't spontaneous. It was deliberate. She opened her phone and played the last voice message he'd sent her 2 nights ago. If this case goes where I think it will, Mira, promise me you won't stop, even if it looks finished. Now, his words echoed differently, not as paranoia, but as prophecy. Mira stood, grabbed her coat, and looked at Malik. I'm going back to that apartment. The first window. He frowned. Why? Forensics cleared it weeks ago. Exactly, she said, eyes cold and focused. That's what worries me. As she left the precinct, the rain began again. Same rhythm, same weight as the night before. Only this time, it didn't sound like rain. It sounded like warning. The old apartment building stood on the edge of the city, a forgotten row of crumbling walls and broken blinds. The kind of place where the wind carried secrets instead of sound. Mira parked under a flickering streetlight, rain dripping from the gutter in rhythmic beats. Apartment for B. The place where the silent window murders began. She walked up the narrow staircase, flashlight in hand. The door was sealed with old crime tape, brittle from weather and time. She peeled it back and stepped inside. Dust swirled in the air, thick and heavy. The smell of mold mixed with something faintly metallic old air that hadn't been disturbed since the case closed. The room looked exactly like the photos. Overturned chair, cracked lamp, faded bloodstains on the carpet. But one thing was different. The window. In the case file, Armand's photographs had shown it boarded up, shattered from the outside. But now, it stood clean, spotless glass, freshly fitted frame, no sign of damage. Mira frowned. That's not possible. She approached, brushing her fingers across the cold pane. Someone had been here, recently. A soft reflection moved across the glass, and for a moment, her own face blurred with another Armand's. The flicker of memory hit like static, him standing here during the investigation, staring out at the rain, saying, the killer didn't come in. They were already inside. She shivered. Pulling out her phone, she turned on the camera light and traced along the window frame. That's when she saw it. A small marking carved into the wood, hidden near the bottom. 3 lines intersecting, forming a symbol like a triangle split down the middle. She photographed it, zoomed in. "What were you trying to tell me, Armin?" she whispered. The floor creaked behind her. She turned sharply, flashlight cutting across the room. Nothing. Just shadows, peeling wallpaper, and the hum of the storm outside. Still, the feeling wouldn't leave that sense of being watched. She checked the rest of the apartment. The kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom. All empty. But as she stepped back into the main room, her light caught something under the table, a small piece of folded paper. Kneeling, she picked it up carefully. The handwriting was Armand's. "If they find this before you do, it's already too late. Trust the window." Mira's breath caught. The words were fresh, ink dark, paper unstained by time. He had been here after the case closed. She backed away slowly, eyes scanning the window again. Every inch, every reflection. That's when she noticed something faint in the glass. Not her own reflection, but movement behind her. She turned instantly. Flashlight beam slicing through the dark, and saw only the open doorway. No one. No sound. But the feeling of presence was undeniable. Her phone buzzed suddenly, vibrating in her pocket. She looked down. Unknown number. She hesitated. 10. Answered, Detective Mira Khan. The voice on the other end was calm, quiet, and hauntingly familiar. "You shouldn't be there, Mira." Her heart froze. Arman, where are you?" "Don't trust anyone at the precinct," he said, voice low, distorted by static. "They know I found the list. If you want the truth, go back to where it began." The line went dead. Mira stood there, the phone still pressed to her ear, the storm rumbling outside. She turned back toward the window, only to find the reflection had changed again. This time, the words they're watching were written faintly in condensation across the glass. And for the first time since the case began, Detective Mira Khan felt fear. Mira didn't sleep that night. The rain had stopped, but her mind hadn't. Armin's voice still echoed in her ears. Go back to where it began. But where had it really begun? The first victim's apartment. The phone call, or the moment Armin realized the case was bigger than murder. By morning, she was back in her office, the box Armin left sitting open on her desk. Inside, the flash drive, the keyring, and that note about the window. She plugged the drive into her laptop, ignoring the department's security warnings. A single folder appeared. Silent Window Raw. She clicked it. Inside were dozens of short clips, security footage, audio files, and something labeled Voice 3 Final. She hesitated, then pressed play. Audio crackle, faint hum. Armin's voice. "If you're hearing this, it means I was right." The confession was staged. The evidence. Planted. The real case is buried in the witness list. The ones who never made it to court. Someone erased them from the system. Start with the name at the window. The clip ended abruptly. Mira opened the case report on her monitor and scanned the witness list. 3 names. The first, Nadia Farid, reported missing 2 years before the last murder. Declared deceased. Mira frowned. Nadia Farid, the name at the window. She typed it into the database. No results. Not even a death certificate. It was as if the woman had never existed. Malik entered quietly, holding 2 coffee cups. "You've been here all night. Couldn't sleep." He placed a cup beside her. "Tech traced that unknown call from last night. You're not gonna like it." "Where?" He hesitated. It was rerouted through Armand's old desk line. The one in the archives office. Mira froze. That line's been inactive for months. Exactly. She stood, grabbed her badge, and headed for the lower floor. The archives room was cold, still, and half-lit. Rows of old evidence boxes stretched into the dark. Dust floated in beams of pale light. The phone sat on a small desk in the corner. Cord twisted, receiver off the hook. She lifted it slowly. Dead silence. Then, a faint click. A recorded message played. Armin's voice again, softer. This time, if you've come this far, you're being watched. They'll follow your badge, not your instincts. Use the key. Mira looked down at the small brass key from the box. Numbers were engraved into its side. Beidou's Ministresi basement locker, she murmured. Malik frowned. You think? But she was already moving. They descended into the lower sub-basement, the part of the precinct that smelled of concrete and secrets. Beidou's 13 sat behind a chain gate, rusted but intact. She inserted the key, turn it once, and the lock clicked open. Inside was a single envelope. She tore it open. Inside were 4 photos, all surveillance stills. Each one showed a man in a gray suit, blurred face, standing near different government buildings. And on the back of each photo, Arman had written the same word, witness. Malik looked over her shoulder. Who is he? I don't know, she said softly, but he's not supposed to exist. As she slid the photos back into the envelope, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're making the same mistake he did. No sender, no trace. Just a single image attached, a still frame from the same apartment window she'd visited last night. Except now, there was someone standing inside, and the time stamp on the image. 2 minutes ago. Mira's breath hitched. Malik, someone's in that apartment. He stared. But you just... She didn't let him finish. She grabbed her coat, the envelope, and her gun. Whatever Armin had uncovered, it wasn't over. And whoever was behind the silent window murders, they were already watching her. The building looked different in daylight. Less haunted, more ordinary. But Mira knew better. The shadows here didn't wait for night. They lingered patient and watchful. She parked across the street, waiting, eyes fixed on the 4th floor window. The same window that had once belonged to Nadia Farid. The time stamp on the image still haunted her. 2 minutes ago. Whoever sent it knew she'd see it right away. Molik's voice came through her earpiece. Backup's 5 minutes out. You sure you don't want to wait? No, she said, stepping out of the car. 5 minutes is too long when the dead start texting. The stairwell creaked under her boots. Each step echoed through the narrow corridor like a countdown. When she reached the 4th floor, the door to 4B stood slightly open. Her gun came up instinctively. Lahore. Police, if someone's in there, show me your hands. No answer. Just the faint whistle of wind through the window. She pushed the door open with her shoulder. Slow, deliberate. The room was empty again. Almost. On tea table where she'd found Armin's note last night lay a single teacup. Steam still rose from it. Her pulse quickened. Someone was here. Recently, she swept the flashlight across the room. The corner, the hallway, the shadows near the curtain, and froze. A woman sat quietly in the far corner, legs crossed, eyes downcast. Her face paled, her hands trembling. She looked half-starved, half awake. Nadia Farid, Mira asked, lowering the gun slightly. The woman's eyes flicked up, and in that moment, Mira felt it. Recognition. The same face from the old witness file that should have been erased years ago. You're supposed to be dead, Mira whispered. Nadia smiled faintly. So is he. Mira stepped closer. Armin, you've seen him? The woman nodded slowly, then shook her head. He came here, a few nights ago. Said they were coming. Told me to hide. Who's they? Nadia hesitated, glancing at the window. You shouldn't have come alone. Mira felt the chill crawl up her spine. Tell me what's going on. Nadia reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small recorder. Old, cracked. The kind detectives used before everything went digital. He left this for you. Mira took it carefully, thumb hovering over the play button. The night the rain stopped. Nadia said softly. He said it was his last message. Mira pressed play. Armand's voice. Faint. Tired. If you've found this, you're closer than they want you to be. Nadia isn't who they said she was. She saw what I saw. The murders were staged to erase witnesses tied to Project Hadean. Government cover-up. Hidden under the homicide files. I can't protect her anymore. Or myself. The recording cut out, abruptly replaced by static. Project Hadean, Mira repeated under her breath. Nadia's voice trembled. They used the murders to hide the bodies. Real ones, people who knew about the experiments. Mira frowned. Experiments? But before Nadia could answer, a soft click echoed from the hallway. The unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. Mira spun around, gun raised. Police. Show yourself. Nothing. The sound came again, closer this time. The old apartment door creaked, then slammed shut from the outside. Mira lunged forward, pulling Nadia behind the kitchen counter. Just as the first bullet shattered the glass, the window exploded inward, shards raining across the room. Mira fired twice toward the hallway, her shots echoing through the old walls. Silence followed. 10 footsteps fast, deliberate, fading down the corridor. When she looked up, Nadia was trembling. They found us, she whispered. Mira's breathing slowed, controlled. Then, they're scared. That means we're close. She helped Nadia to her feet, checked the hallway, and found the door's outer lock broken, forced from the other side. Whoever had fired the shot didn't want to kill them. They wanted to warn them. She turned to Nadia. You're coming with me. We're done hiding. As they left the apartment, Mira glanced back once. The shattered window reflected the storm clouds gathering again, and just faintly. Through the cracks in the glass, she saw something scratched into the frame beneath the bullet hole. 3 words, in Armand's handwriting. It wasn't murder. The old wooden boards groaned under his weight as Detective Harris knelt in the dim light. His flashlight caught the edges of something metallic half buried beneath the floor's loose plank. He pried it open, the sound echoing through the hollow room. Inside was a small tin box, rusted, trembling in his hands. He opened it slowly. A photograph, a badge, and a single folded note. The badge belonged to Detective Alan Graves, his mentor, the same man who vanished 12 years ago during an internal investigation no one dared to speak about. The photograph showed Graves and another man standing outside this very building, but the second man's face had been scratched out with a knife. The rage in those gouges told its own story. The note was brief. 5 words, written in the same tight handwriting Graves used for his case reports. He knows. I'm next. Aggie Harris felt the chill crawl through him like a memory he'd tried to forget. Graves had been chasing corruption within the department before he disappeared. If this was his safe house, it meant the rot ran deeper than anyone imagined. He checked the floor beneath the box and found the faint outline of shoe prints, recent ones. Dust disturbed. The person who left this here had been back. Maybe even hours ago. And then he noticed it. A trail of muddy footprints leading to the basement door. He exhaled quietly, his heartbeat syncing with the hum of the failing bulb overhead. Slowly, he reached for his gun, flicked the safety off, and stepped toward the stairs. Each step creaked like a warning. The air grew colder, and just before the last step, he heard it breathing. Someone was down there, waiting, and then a whisper rose from the dark. You shouldn't have come back, Harris. The basement smelled of mildew and dusted secrets. A stagnant kind of air that remembered every lie ever told inside those walls. Harris kept his gun low, his breath steady, the flashlight trembling just slightly in his hand. The beam swept across concrete pillars, rotted boxers, and then stopped. A man stood in the corner. Tall, still, his face hidden by shadow. For a moment, the silence felt like an interrogation of its own, neither willing to speak first. Then the man shifted forward, and the light revealed the faint glint of a police badge around his neck. Harris's voice broke through the tension. Identify yourself. The stranger smiled faintly. You already know who I am. The light caught his features older, sharper, haunted. Harris froze. It couldn't be. The man in front of him was Detective Alan Graves. The one who'd disappeared. The man everyone believed was dead. Harris's gun wavered. That's not possible. Graves raised his hands slowly, not in surrender, but in something like weary acknowledgement. I told them the truth, Harris, and they buried me for it. The words hung heavy. Harris lowered the gun an inch. His mind raced to every report, every file, every whispered conversation about Graves's accident. It had all been a cover. What truth? Harris asked, his tone slipping between disbelief and dread. Graves stepped closer, his eyes hollow. The corruption runs higher than you think. Every case you ever solved was part of it, even the one that got you promoted. Harris felt something break inside him. The case that made his career, the one he believed, proved his worth. Now twisted into a weapon against him. Why tell me now? Harris whispered. Graves glanced toward the basement stairs, then back at him. Because they're already coming, and this time, they don't need me to disappear. They need you too. For a moment, Harris couldn't speak. His ears filled with the low hum of the basement lights and the pounding of his own heartbeat. Graves was alive, but every word coming out of his mouth felt like it was pulling Harris deeper into something far larger than either of them. They're coming for me, Harris finally asked, trying to steady his voice. Graves nodded slowly. Not just you. Anyone still asking questions about the 9th Precinct files? You stumbled onto something you weren't supposed to. The girl, Harris pressed. The missing witness. Graves' eyes darted toward the far wall, a cracked section of concrete, sealed with newer plaster. She saw everything. The night Captain Rourke ordered the cleanup. She ran. I hid her here. But they found us before I could get her out. Harris stepped closer, the light now fixed on the wall. What's behind that? A mistake, Graves said. His voice trembled for the first time, one I buried with my own hands. Harris's grip on the flashlight tightened. You killed her? Graves shook his head violently. No. I saved her. I faked her death, changed her name. She's been out there all this time, but if they think you've made the connection, she's as good as dead. The sound of tires screeching echoed faintly from outside. Headlights flashed across the basement window. They found us, Graves said under his breath. Harris turned off the flashlight. Total darkness swallowed them both. Only their ragged breathing remained. Why come back now, Graves? Harris whispered. Because the truth doesn't stay buried, Graves answered. And neither do the people who dig it up. A shadow moved past the narrow window. Armed, deliberate, trained. Graves leaned close, his whispers sharp and final. There's a recording in a badge box upstairs. Get it out, and whatever happens next, don't trust the badge. A crash shattered the quiet, the basement door exploding inward. The door burst open with a thunderclap, and a blinding beam of tactical flashlights sliced through the dark. Shadows leaped across the damp walls as boots thundered down the stairs. Harris ducked behind a support beam, gun drawn, as bullets ripped through the air. Splinters flew. Dust clouded his vision, and for a heartbeat he heard nothing but the crack of gunfire and Graves yelling his name. Go! Harris, go! Harris turned just in time to see Graves shove a crate aside, revealing a narrow escape tunnel half-collapsed and lined with old electrical wires. Before Harris could react, Graves took a bullet to the shoulder, spinning him back into the wall. Graves waved him off, his hands slick with blood. You have to finish it. Get the recording. Tell him what we found. Harris hesitated. The tactical team was closing in, boots scraping the concrete. Someone shouted, Detective-y! Harris, drop your weapon. It wasn't an enemy's voice. It was Rourke S., the same captain who'd mentored him. The same man Graves had accused. Sir, Harris called out, his voice echoing off the cold walls. Put the gun down, Rourke said. Come. Commanding. You don't understand what's happening. Graves has been unstable for years. Harris's hands trembled. The world was spinning. Graves groaned behind him, whispering, "He's lying, Harris. He always has been." Rourke stepped into the light, expression unreadable, gun steady. "You're a good cop, Harris. Don't throw your life away chasing ghosts." But something in his tone, rehearsed, almost gentle, made Harris's stomach twist. He'd heard that voice before. Not in command. In interrogation. Graves coughed, blood bubbling at his lips. "He said the same thing to me, the night I disappeared." Harris froze. Rourke's eyes darkened. "Then you already know how this ends." And before Harris could answer, another shot rang out. Deafening, final. The flashlight rolled across the floor. One man fell, and in the silence that followed, the truth Harris had been chasing finally bled into the shadows. Detective Mira Khan arrived at the precinct before dawn, rain misting the streetlights in soft halos. The building looked empty, but she knew better. The walls had absorbed years of secrets, and today she was about to uncover the ones Armin had left for her. The flash drive was clutched in her hand, the envelope of photos inside her coat pocket. She ducked past the main floor, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and descended into the archives. The part of the building most officers avoided. Here, the air was stale and heavy, filled with dust and the faint metallic scent of old evidence. Lockerbie 2-13 waited. Mira slid the key into the lock, feeling the cold brass bite her fingers. The door clicked open. Inside was the tin box Armin had left months ago, long before his disappearance. She lifted the lid carefully. Inside, a badge, a small recorder, and a single envelope marked for Mira. "Do not trust." Her pulse quickened. The badge was standard issue, nothing remarkable at first glance, but under the microscope, she saw it had been subtly altered. Serial numbers erased, a hidden microchip embedded in the back. Mira's hand hovered over the recorder. She pressed play. Armand's voice filled the small, dimly lit space. "Mira, if you're hearing this, it means I've vanished. They'll use everything. The badge, the files, the witness statements to frame you. Don't let them. Start with the people who should have died but didn't. Project Hadean is bigger than anyone suspected. Follow the window. Trust no one." Her stomach tightened. The rain outside intensified, tapping a frantic rhythm against the windows. Mira realized Ottoman hadn't just left clues. He had left her a map through a maze of lies, betrayal, and murder. She looked down at the badge again. A faint glow pulsed from the embedded chip. Someone or something was tracking it. The building felt alive with danger, shadows stretching like claws across the floor. Mira exhaled, her voice low. "All right, Armin, show me where it all begins." She pocketed the badge and stepped into the stairwell, knowing the first step would lead her closer to the truth and deeper into the web Armin had tried to escape. The stairwell reeked of damp concrete and old secrets. Mira's flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating peeling paint and rusted pipes. Each step echoed, bouncing off walls that had seen decades of whispered confessions and hidden files. The badge in her pocket pulsed faintly, as if guiding her toward the next point in Armand's intricate mussy. She arrived at the basement archives, a section of the precinct rarely visited, filled with filing cabinets that seemed to stretch into infinity. Each drawer bore the weight of old investigations, forgotten or deliberately buried. Myra opened the first drawer, revealing folders labeled with case numbers, dates, and names. Many she recognized, some she didn't. One folder caught her attention. Hadean Witnesses, Confidential. She pulled it out carefully. Inside were photographs, statements, and birth certificates for individuals declared deceased, but who had clearly survived, including Nadia Farid. Armin's notes were scribbled in the margins, tiny but deliberate. "Follow the living." A faint noise made her freeze. The scrape of boots far away. Mira ducked behind a filing cabinet, peering into the shadows. Nothing moved, but the sense of being watched pressed against her like the walls themselves. She spread the documents across the table, cross-referencing the names with surveillance footage from Armand's flash drive. Patterns emerged. Every victim had one thing in common: proximity to a high-level government program referred to repeatedly in Armand's notes as Project, the same program Graves had warned Harris about: experiments, surveillance, disappearances. Mira felt a chill. The victims hadn't been random, they were witnesses, and someone had orchestrated the murders to erase the evidence. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number, she hesitated. 10 unswear it. Stop digging, detective. Some truths are worth hiding. The line went dead. Mira's jaw tightened. Not this one, she whispered. Armand trusted me to finish this. She collected the folders, photographs, and flash drive, preparing to leave the basement. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer, every sound amplified. She knew the next step would lead her closer to Armand, and whoever had orchestrated Project Hadian. The rain outside had returned, soft at first, then relentless, as if marking the path forward. Mira gripped the badge in her pocket, feeling its pulse sync with her own heartbeat. Show me the truth, she muttered, no matter what it costs. The streets were slick with rain as Mira approached the old apartment building, the window that had haunted Armand's last investigation staring back at her through the mist. She clutched the flash drive and folder tightly, every sense alert. The badge in her pocket pulsed faintly, a reminder that the people who wanted the truth buried were still watching. Inside, apartment 4B was quiet, almost deceptively calm. Mira moved slowly, scanning the corners, the walls, the shattered remnants of the storm from the previous night. Then she saw it, a hidden panel in the wall near the window. The edges were faint, almost invisible. She pushed it aside. Inside lay a small console, wires snaking into the walls, blinking lights casting eerie reflections across the room. She inserted the flash drive. The screen flickered, revealing surveillance footage. Footage Armand had compiled over months, tracking not just the victims, but the orchestrators of Project Hadian itself. Faces she recognized from reports, high-ranking officials and corporate sponsors, each involved in covering up the murders, manipulating witnesses, erasing lives. And there, in the center of it all, was Armand. Alive, but cautious, moving through shadowed corridors, documenting everything. A soft sound behind her made Mira turn. Nadia Farid stepped out from the shadows, eyes wide. He left it all here for you, she whispered. Armand couldn't escape. Not completely, but he trusted you to finish it. Mira watched the final clip. Armand stood at the same window, rain streaming down the glass, speaking directly to the camera. Project Hadian is bigger than any of us. They'll come for anyone who sees the truth. If you're watching this, trust no one. Follow the trail I left. Protect the witnesses. And remember, some disappearances aren't deaths. Some people vanish to save the rest. The badge pulsed one last time and then went dark. The storm outside broke, rain washing the streets clean. Mira knew this wasn't the end. Not for the case. Not for Project Hadian. Not for Aman. But she also knew she now held the map to the truth. Looking out the window, Mira whispered to the empty city below, I'll finish this. For you, Armand, and for everyone they tried to erase. The rain fell harder. And for the first time, the city felt alive with possibility. A place where buried secrets might finally see daylight. The city was quiet now, washed clean by relentless rain. But in the shadows of its alleys, in the corners of abandoned buildings, Mira knew the echoes of the vanished still lingered. Armand Halley had left her a trail, a labyrinth of clues, warnings, and hidden truths. And through it, she had seen the machinery behind Project Hadian, the people willing to erase anyone in their path. Mira stood by the window where the story had begun. The shards of glass, the faint scratches, the reflection of rain-slicked streets. It all told the story of those who had vanished to protect the truth, of the sacrifices made, and of the courage it took to keep searching. She clutched the flash drive, the badge, and Nadia's trembling hand. The investigation was far from over. The system that had orchestrated the disappearances remained, lurking behind offices, titles, and paperwork. But now, the witnesses were accounted for. The evidence was safe. The truth, finally, had a guardian. And somewhere out there, Armin Harley was still alive, still watching, still trusting that Mira would carry the case forward. Mita exhaled, letting the weight of the night settle. She knew this was only one chapter in a larger story, a story of corruption, courage, and the fragile line between justice and survival. Turning to Nadia, she said quietly, "We'll finish what he started, and we'll make sure the vanished are never forgotten." The rain continued, soft now, like a promise.